If you thought quarterback battles were messy before, trust me, you've seen nothing yet. Because what went down inside the Browns facility didn't just break the internet. It shook an entire franchise to its core. This is Spill News, where secrets explode before your eyes. And today's secret? It's the kind of story coaches pray never gets out, players whisper about in the locker room, and fans swear the media is hiding. But not here. Not today. It started like any ordinary practice, until Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the field with a look that said, "I'm not here to compete. I'm here to take over." And on the other side, Dillon Gabriel, drafted higher, hyped louder, and suddenly realizing that everything he thought he controlled, he didn't control at all. One snap, one throw, one moment, and the entire facility flipped upside down. Because imagine this happening to you. Imagine thinking you're safe, thinking you're the chosen one, thinking the job is yours, and then someone walks in and humiliates you in front of every coach, every teammate, every pair of eyes in the building. What would you do? The internet couldn't believe it, and you won't either. Let's break it all down, because trust me, it gets uglier. From the very first second Shedeur Sanders walked onto that Browns practice field, you could feel the shift, not a small one. Not the usual pre-practice energy players bring when cameras are around. This was different, colder, sharper, heavier. The type of shift that tells you something big is about to happen, even if nobody knows what shape it'll take yet. Coaches tried pretending everything was normal, bouncing from station to station with clipboards tucked under their arms, but you could see the way they kept glancing over their shoulders. Even the equipment guys moved differently, like they didn't want to be standing in the wrong place when whatever this was finally snapped open. Shedeur didn't jog, didn't hype himself up, didn't talk. He walked onto the field with the kind of calm that scares people. Calm like someone who knows exactly what's going to happen and knows nobody can stop it. Across the field, Dillon Gabriel looked the exact opposite. Tight shoulders, shallow breaths, helmet chin strap in his hands like he was talking himself into something. Maybe convincing himself he still had the upper hand. Maybe reminding himself he was drafted higher, praised louder, protected longer. Maybe pretending those things still mattered. But they didn't. Not today. 7-on-7 installation is supposed to be easy. Simple reads, predictable patterns, warm-up reps, nothing dramatic. Except the very first throw Shedeur made cut the air so cleanly it actually made two position coaches turn around like they heard something impossible. A quick out to the sideline, ball placed exactly where only the receiver could catch it, timing so perfect it looked rehearsed. Teammates didn't celebrate, they didn't cheer, they didn't react loudly. Instead, they exchanged short glances, the kind athletes give when they just witness something that rewrites the depth chart in real time. Then Dillon stepped in. He opened with a hesitation, footwork off rhythm, eyes bouncing too fast. And when he finally let the ball go, it sailed behind the receiver so badly the route died halfway through. The silence that followed wasn't just silence. It was uncomfortable. The kind where players looked down at the turf to avoid making eye contact with the coaches, who are already pretending not to judge. Shedeur's next rep? A 15-yard timing route, hit with such clean anticipation that the receiver didn't even break stride. Gabriel's follow-up? Nearly picked off. The defensive backs didn't even trash talk, and that's how you know it was bad. When defenders don't roast a quarterback after a near interception, it means they feel pity. By the time the first rotation ended, it wasn't a battle. It wasn't even a comparison. It was a revelation. Staffers with iPads started quietly repositioning themselves behind Shedeur's line of sight, the subtle signal that they already knew where the good footage was coming from. But the real turning point came during the next offensive period. Shedeur took the snap, read the field in what looked like half a second, and dropped a throw that coaches would pretend was just a practice rep. Even though every single person who saw it knew it belonged in a highlight reel. A perfectly threaded seam shot through two defenders, equal parts reckless and surgical, and the moment the ball hit the receiver's hands, the sideline erupted. Not dramatic celebration. The kind of instant chest bumps that happen when players recognize they're watching a new hierarchy being established. Then Dillon stepped in again. And this is where things began to unravel in ways that couldn't be ignored. His first throw skipped, literally skipped. Then came a late check down that forced a running back to dive on the turf, followed by a slant throw behind the receiver so badly the offensive coordinator covered his mouth with his play sheet. Receivers started walking back toward the huddle slower, tight, and stared at the ground. Running backs drifted closer to Shedeur's line of reps, almost like their bodies were naturally gravitating toward the quarterback who made the offense feel alive. By the time red zone drill started, the performance gap wasn't a gap, it was a canyon. Sanders opened with a touch pass in the back corner of the end zone, so clean that two assistant coaches actually yelled without meaning to. Gabriel responded with a throw that defenders returned for a walk-in pick-six, and one coach placed both hands on a head like he was watching the entire offseason collapse in real time. The worst part? Nobody argued. Nobody said my bad. Nobody corrected anyone. Everyone knew what that moment meant. And sometimes silence is the loudest sound in the world. And then came the play, the one that cracked the entire practice in half. Shedeur stepped into a 45-yard bomb, threading it between two defenders like he had mapped the angle out hours before. The reaction wasn't normal. The offense didn't celebrate. It exploded. Receivers chest bumped. Linemen shouted. Even defensive players nodded their heads like they just witnessed a quarterback capable of running an NFL offense on day one. Dillon's next rep after that moment, a missed check down, a literal missed check down. And the silence that followed this time wasn't awkward, it was fatal. Teammates didn't walk back to the huddle. They drifted away, quietly, naturally, like they already knew where the real leader was standing. By the time team period began, the final, most important part of practice, the entire field felt lopsided. Shedeur's drive was flawless. 5 plays, perfect rhythm, no hesitation, no panic. The kind of composure quarterbacks don't usually show until they've been in the league for years. When Gabriel stepped in next, the offensive line's energy dipped instantly. One lineman didn't even get into a stance properly, like he already expected the rep to fail. And it did. A busted timing route, a near sack, a miscommunication that stopped the drive dead before it ever started. And that's when it happened. The moment nobody saw coming, and the moment everybody will pretend they didn't witness. As the team shifted to the sideline for the next period, Gabriel walked straight toward Shedeur, not in a friendly way, not in a competitive way, in a way that said frustration had finally boiled over. Staffers froze, players paused, and Gabriel, visibly upset, finally snapped. Sources say he confronted Shedeur with a line that wasn't loud, but carried enough venom to silence entire position groups. Some variation of, "You think they're following you because you're better? They're supposed to look at me." Shedeur didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. He just pointed back toward the field. Expression calm, controlled, unforgiving, as if saying, "Look at the reps. Look at the results. You already know why." Players closed in instantly, trying to block sight lines, trying to de-escalate before coaches noticed. But coaches noticed. Everyone noticed. And for the first time all day, even Gabriel realized he wasn't fighting Shedeur anymore. He was fighting the reality forming around him. Because today wasn't competition. It was a takeover. And what came next, even his enemies didn't expect. What came next, even his enemies didn't expect. Because the moment coaches stepped in to cool the sideline tension, something shifted that no organization ever wants to witness. The team started choosing sides. And not quietly, not subtly, not in those little ways players try to hide during controversies. This shift was loud without anyone saying a word. The offense gravitated toward Shedeur Sanders like gravity itself changed direction. Receivers drifted toward him instinctively, not because they were told to, but because they knew where the ball needed to be. Running backs stayed closer to him, hands on hips, nodding slightly as if they'd already accepted the inevitable. Even offensive linemen, the group that usually stays neutral, angled their bodies toward Shedeur like a subconscious signal of who they believed could actually lead them. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel stood with 2 equipment assistants who didn't know what to say, where to look, or how to pretend everything was fine. Coaches pretended they hadn't seen the confrontation, but the air around them said otherwise. They didn't yell, they didn't correct, they didn't defend. Instead, they just exchanged uncomfortable glances, that unspoken coaching language that means, "We have a problem we can't control." Practice resumed, but the energy was off. Shedeur stepped back under center for another hurry-up sequence, and the entire offense shifted into perfect sync like they'd been waiting for this moment all camp. The defense tightened, ready to challenge him, but even they knew something special was happening. First play, quick slant. Ball out before the receiver even turned. Second play, comeback route, perfectly placed. Third play, play action rollout hitting a tight end in stride. Fourth play, a back shoulder throw that made two DBs look at each other like they had just been pranked. Fifth play, a sideline strike so clean that one assistant coach whispered, "That's an NFL throw," without even realizing others heard him. By the time the drive reached midfield, defensive players weren't frustrated. They were impressed. That's the part people won't admit publicly, but it's the part that matters most. When defenders start nodding after they get beat, that's respect. That's acknowledgement. That's hierarchy forming right in front of them. Then it was Dillon's turn, and the energy died instantly. Nobody said anything. Nobody reacted, but the shift was immediate and painful. First play, miscommunication with the slot receiver, ball landing 3 yards short. Second play, hesitation leading to a near sack. Third play, late read that got batted down at the line. Fourth play, a slant thrown so far behind the receiver that even practice squad defenders looked confused. By the fifth play, players stopped adjusting their gloves, stopped fixing their helmets, stopped pretending to expect something good. They just stood there and waited for the rep to end. And then came the breaking moment. The one that people inside the building swear they'll never forget. The ball was snapped, Gabriel stepped back, and everything fell apart at once. Footwork tangled, timing off, a panic step to the left. And then he threw a desperation pass straight into traffic. A defender caught it easily, but what mattered wasn't the interception. It was the reaction. Coaches didn't groan. They didn't yell. They didn't throw their hands up. Instead, there was something worse. They froze. Absolute stillness. The kind of stillness that says, without saying, "We can't put this guy on the field." And everyone knew Gabriel felt it too. Players on the sideline exchanged looks, not mocking, not cruel, but the looks teammates give when they know a chapter is closing. Quiet resignation. The type athletes never say out loud, because the truth hurts too much when spoken. When the period ended, the team gathered near midfield, and that's when the real drama kicked in. A few receivers walked directly to Shedeur, casually asking about route timing, footwork, adjustments. Normal stuff. Except they didn't even glance in Gabriel's direction while doing it. Not once. Meanwhile, a tight end tapped Gabriel on the shoulder with a quick "You're good, bro," before jogging away. Words meant to comfort, but tone that didn't match. Even Gabriel noticed. His face tightened, jaw clenched. Helmet tucked under his arm, like it weighed twice as much as it did 10 minutes earlier. Then came the whispers, those little sideline murmurs that spread like wildfire. Not trash talk, not gossip, something worse. Observations. Shedeur's running the offense way cleaner. You see those reads? Bro, that's different. That's not rookie stuff. Those comments weren't meant to be loud, but Gabriel heard everyone. And the worst part? Not a single one was wrong. A few minutes later, as coaches regrouped for the final practice period, a small group of defensive players quietly gathered behind the bench. They weren't talking about defensive schemes or play calls. They were talking about leadership. One of them muttered, "Offense only moves when 10 is in." Another responded, "They might as well call it now. We all see it." They didn't know a staffer overheard them, but the staffer did. And that's when the entire organization started realizing this wasn't a temporary bad day. This was a reveal. The final practice sequence of the day was supposed to be simple. 2-minute drill simulation, nothing fancy. But what happened turned into the most telling sequence of the afternoon. Shedeur led his drive with surgical precision again, hitting every read like he had written the playbook himself. Coaches didn't say a word. They didn't need to. Their silence was filled with relief. Like they were watching the quarterback they'd been hoping for finally materialize in front of them. Veteran players on the sidelines nodded among themselves. impressed by the control. Even practice squad rookies watched quietly, like they were witnessing something they'd tell stories about years later. When Shedeur finished his flawless drive and jogged back to the sideline, Gabriel stepped up for his turn, and that's when the entire offense shifted their body language in a way nobody could hide anymore. Some players adjusted their gloves, pretending to tighten straps they already tightened minutes earlier. Others grabbed water bottles, even though they weren't thirsty. A few simply crossed their arms and watched, not with anticipation, but with resignation. The drive started and fell apart instantly. Dillon's first throw missed high. Second play resulted in a blown protection because his cadence sounded rushed. Third play, a misread that the safety recognized before Gabriel even threw the ball. And on the fourth play, the embarrassment hit its peak. Gabriel stepped back, hesitated, and threw a pass that thudded directly at the feet of a running back who hadn't even turned around yet. The silence after that throw wasn't silence. It was judgment. Coaches didn't blow whistles. Players didn't reset the formation. A staffer didn't even write anything down. Everyone just stood there, letting the moment marinate. A moment that said everything none of them wanted to admit. The competition wasn't a competition anymore. When practice finally broke, the locker room didn't need words. Veterans glanced toward Shedeur with that quiet nod of approval young quarterbacks pray to earn. Linemen walked near him naturally, not forced. Receivers tapped him on the shoulder as they passed, offering tiny gestures of respect. Meanwhile, Gabriel walked toward his locker stiffly, helmet in his hand, eyes low, the weight of the entire day pressing into his shoulders. He didn't say anything. Nobody needed him to, because the truth was already written in the grass, in the film, in the silence, in the reactions. But the real shock, the real collapse, the real moment nobody imagined wasn't over. Because just when they thought the drama had peaked, just when they believed practice couldn't get any darker for Gabriel, another name entered the conversation. And that changed everything. Because up until this point, the story was simple. Shedeur Sanders dominated, Dillon Gabriel crumbled, and the Browns organization felt a shift powerful enough to silence every hallway from the training room to the executive offices upstairs. But when whispers started spreading about a third name, someone who hadn't taken a rep, someone who hadn't even stepped onto the field that day, the entire quarterback controversy transformed into something deeper, darker, and far more explosive than a simple practice meltdown. The name wasn't a rival quarterback. It wasn't a coach. It wasn't a teammate. It was someone who had been watching from the shadows of the organization, someone with influence powerful enough to change careers with a single phone call, a front office evaluator who was reportedly furious. Multiple insiders claimed that as practice spiraled into disaster for Gabriel, a high-ranking executive marched through the indoor facility doors with an expression that said every draft meeting, every evaluation, every projection he made about Gabriel had just blown up in front of cameras, players, and scouts. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was organizational contradiction. Ownership had pushed for Shedeur. The front office had backed Gabriel. And on that Wednesday afternoon, the field had chosen a side, and it didn't choose the one with draft authority. That whisper the executive's name spread to the locker room like wildfire, players murmuring things like, "He's heated," and "This is about to get political." Because in the NFL, losing reps is bad. Losing respect is worse. But losing the front office? That can end a career before it begins. As Gabriel sat at his locker, staring into the empty space in front of him like he was watching his future collapse in slow motion, that executive reportedly walked right past him without a word. Not a nod, not a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Nothing. Just a cold silence that told Gabriel everything he needed to know. There would be no protection this time. No excuses. No narrative spin. No rookie growing pains or developmental timeline talk. Not after today. Meanwhile, Shedeur stayed quiet, not celebrating, not gloating, not even acknowledging the shift happening around him. If anything, he looked heavier, like he understood exactly what kind of storm was coming next. He didn't just win reps today. He won the team, and that comes with a price. Players in the room felt the tension instantly. One by one, they filtered out, avoiding the kind of eye contact that could pull them into political crossfire. Veteran leaders escaped quickly, pretending they had treatment, meetings, or personal responsibilities. Younger guys kept their heads down. Even position coaches stayed off to the side, whispering to each other like they weren't sure which quarterback they were allowed to support openly. Because when politics enter a locker room, everyone starts moving differently. Everyone starts watching their words. Everyone starts choosing silence over honesty. But one person didn't choose silence. A receiver, one who caught multiple passes from Shedeur that day, walked straight to the head coach's office, closed the door behind him, and said the words that would ripple through the franchise by nightfall. "Coach, we all know who runs the offense. No disrespect, no agenda, just truth." A truth the coach already knew, but hadn't expected to hear from players so boldly, so directly, so early. And that shook the staff more than anything that happened on the field. When the meeting ended, that same receiver walked past Gabriel without even a glance. Not cruelty, just the quiet reality of a locker room that had moved on. A locker room that had cast its vote without ever filling out a ballot. A locker room that decided leadership isn't given by draft position, it's earned by performance. And today, Shedeur earned everything. But the real crisis hit when practice film leaked internally, not to the public. But within the building, assistants, analysts, coordinators, training staff, all of them watching a replay of every throw, every hesitation, every moment where Shedeur made the offense breathe and Gabriel suffocated it. The film didn't lie. It didn't soften the embarrassment. It didn't hide the disaster. It simply exposed everything. And when executives watched it, the debate that erupted behind closed doors was so intense sources could hear it from a hallway. One side demanded patience, insisting Gabriel needed time. The other side slammed their hands on tables, arguing that time was a luxury the team didn't have. Not with a rookie who looked like a franchise quarterback in his very first padded practice session. This wasn't a debate about potential. This was a debate about survival, about momentum, about the direction of a team that had been lost in quarterback uncertainty for years. Then came the message, the one that pulled Shedeur into the center of the storm, whether he wanted it or not. A staffer tapped him on the shoulder just as he walked toward the parking lot. "Coach wants to see you," he said. And Shedeur froze, not from fear, but from the weight of what he knew was coming. The moment he stepped into that office, he wasn't just a player anymore. He was the pivot point of the franchise. When he walked in, the coach didn't smile, didn't congratulate him, didn't hype him up. Instead, he took a deep breath and said, "You changed things today." Not praise, not a compliment, a warning. Because in an NFL building, changing things is dangerous. It creates conflict, forces tough decisions, pressures people who don't want their mistakes exposed. Shedeur nodded quietly, acknowledging the message without defiance or fear. The coach leaned back, studying him, searching for signs of ego or immaturity. But all he found was composure, calm, focus, the same energy Shedeur carried onto the field that morning. And that's when the coach realized something he hadn't expected. Shedeur wasn't playing for the job. He was ready for the job. But outside that office, chaos was unfolding. Gabriel's agent had already made calls, questioned the team's direction, evaluating trade scenarios, measuring how publicly he needed to defend his client. A coordinator was pacing in the hallway, furious that the entire evaluation board they built over months had imploded in 2 hours. A veteran player pulled another aside and muttered, "They're going to have to announce something soon. This can't stay quiet." And it didn't, because that evening, after most players had left the building, a leak hit social media. An anonymous source posted a cryptic message. "Shedeur looked like QB1 today. Whole building knows." It didn't mention the meltdown, didn't mention the confrontation, didn't mention the executive tension, but it didn't need to. The message spread instantly, sending fans into a frenzy, media outlets scrambling for confirmation, and reporters speculating about a quarterback change before anyone inside the building could prepare a statement. Gabriel, scrolling through his phone at home, felt the ground drop from under him, not because of the rumors themselves, but because he knew exactly who they were talking about. He had lived it, felt it, watched it unravel. And no matter how many times he tried telling himself tomorrow would be better, the truth grew louder. Tomorrow wasn't promised. Meanwhile, Shedeur sat silently in his apartment, replaying every rep in his mind, knowing that today wasn't just a good practice. It was a defining moment, a moment that drew battle lines, a moment that pushed the franchise into a new era, whether they were ready or not. And tomorrow? Tomorrow would force everyone, players, coaches, executives, fans, to confront a truth no one could run from anymore. But the real twist was still coming, because just hours later, one final message leaked out of the Browns facility, a message that would change everything again. What happened inside the Browns facility that Wednesday afternoon wasn't just a quarterback competition gone wrong. It wasn't a simple bad practice, a rough day, or a rookie struggling under pressure. It was a moment that ripped the truth out of the ground and forced everyone to look at it, a moment that exposed the cracks, the politics, the whispers, and reality every NFL organization tries desperately to keep hidden from the outside world. Whether the franchise wanted it or not, something shifted. Something irreversible. Because now the fans know, the players know, the coaches know, the front office knows. And deep down, even Dillon Gabriel knows. You can't hide a collapse this big. You can't disguise a takeover this loud. You can't pretend a locker room hasn't chosen its leader when every rep, every reaction, every silent moment screams it louder than any official announcement ever could. Shedeur didn't just win the day. He won the room. He won the momentum. He won the future. And tonight, as messages leak, rumors swirl, and media threads explode, one question sits at the center of it all. What happens next? Does the organization admit what the film already proved? Does Gabriel fight back? Or does he fade quietly into the background? Do coaches stand behind their evaluations? Or do they flip the depth chart before the next practice even begins? And most importantly, does this controversy calm down? Or is this just the beginning of something even bigger? What do you think? Who deserves the job? Who earned the locker room? And who should take responsibility for the chaos the entire country is talking about right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't ending here. In fact, it's just getting started. Stay locked in, hit that subscribe button, and be ready, because the next update is going to be even louder,